My Lords, I've also put my name to Amendment 105, and I want to really commend the noble Lord Sandhurst and the noble Lady Baroness Morris of Yardley for their work on this issue. I think it's been very important, and also the Minister for listening and moving forward. But I also want to start off with a bit of a caveat, because a lot of good things have been said, which is, as an ex-teacher, I also am only too aware of the dread of pushy parents intervening in the minutiae of school and turning up and demanding to see this, that and the other. And also, more seriously, you know, we know what happened when a group of activist parents gathered outside Batley Grammar School and actually demanded that they dictate what the curriculum was, and that's not what this is about at all. But I think the context for the government, which is very important, is that at the moment, because parents can't see this material, it's been left in a kind of informal morass of people hearing stories and getting particularly worried. And parents have had to resort to freedom of information requests to see third-party materials, and that really isn't helpful. I think that in a rather excellent expose article by Millie Hill entitled "The Worrying Truth of What Children Are Really Learning in Sex Education," you're leaving it up to journalists to do these exposés, and that just worries parents. And I think, therefore, we have to kind of grab this back, because, you know, most parents think that when their children are being taught about pronouns, that it's helping with their English grammar. And then when they read in the newspaper that it's got something to do with policing language and gender ideology, they understandably worry. They worry when they hear about the affirmation of radical medical interventions. I mean, you know, the amputation of sexual organs and so on. These things are really scary. So I'm urging the government to grab hold of these horror stories and kind of deal with it. So I would like to see the government really acting on this. Very important. But I think that there are things that go beyond the scope of Amendment 105. I think the issue of this parental access and teaching materials talks to a problem of parents feeling that the curriculum on contentious issues is being politicised. There's an excellent new report out called Don't Divide Us, which is called Who's in Charge? A report on Council's anti-racist policies for schools, which I'll pass on to the Minister. I hope she'd even meet the authors. And the reason I refer to that is because I don't want people to think this is just about the gender ideology issue. It's a sort of broader feeling that many parents have that there are third-party providers creating a political atmosphere in school, and that even schools themselves are doing the same. And that raises problems of parents' trust in what's being taught to their children. I therefore wanted to query Amendment 101 on British values, despite the brilliant speeches that we've heard in support of it. Maybe people come back on it. I was really initially attracted to this amendment. After all, it mentions freedom of thought, conscience, religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly and association. These are my passions that I go on about all the time. I thought, great, can we get them into schools? But actually, when I talk about freedom of expression and freedom of conscience and freedom of religion, I'm often written off as some sort of alt-right lunatic these days who doesn't understand that all I want is free speech. Yeah, well, there we go. That only wants free speech in order to come out with hate speech. And I'm saying that because I'm saying that actually even something like free speech is contentious. And I just wonder whether it's sort of trying to use an amendment like this to get around the fact that there's contentious arguments about values, changing the word then to citizenship. I just don't think it's going to resolve the problem. And so I wondered whether I could be consoled by the people who put this amendment that really it's not avoiding a political argument via using the law, or whether in fact it won't end up politicising the curriculum. And I, for example, disagree with the subsection on respect for the environment and so on. And I do think that we have to take into account that Section 406 of the Education Act and the school's legal obligation to remain impartial can be compromised by things which people in this House are passionate about politically, but maybe should not be in schools. And that finally gets me to my concerns about Amendments 118B and 118H, which calls for a review into the teaching about diversity in the school curriculum, and I'm concerned about its emphasis, or that British history includes Black British history, colonialism, and Britain's role in the transatlantic slave trade. Not because I don't think those things should be taught, but because it's being promoted. I think we have to ask whether it's being promoted for historical or political reasons. And the recent controversy over the OCR syllabus on English literature being changed was not justified on literary merits when we had the works of Keats, Thomas Hardy, Wilfred Owen and Larkin removed, but on the basis of an emphasis on ethnicity, on diversity and identity. And I think that that kind of politicising of the curriculum is not doing any service for the pupils that we're teaching, but is also making parents rather suspicious about what's going on in schools.